It started, as the most unbelievable stories often do, with a mop, and a man most people wouldn't notice. At Westbrook Police Department, Stanley Brooks was just Stan the janitor. He shuffled in at 6 p.m. sharp, pushing his squeaky cart filled with disinfectant, rags, and that one air freshener no one liked but he insisted on using. Most officers barely said hello. He was invisible. Background noise. A fixture of the building like the vending machine that always ate your dollar. What they didn't know, what no one really bothered to know, was that Stanley Brooks had an IQ of 160, a photographic memory, and a knack for solving things most people couldn't even see. He didn't flaunt it. He didn't need to. While the detectives chased leads, Stanley listened, observed, memorized, and most of all, connected dots. The dots they missed. Now, it's important to understand, Stanley wasn't bitter about his job. He liked cleaning. There was something pure about a floor shining under fluorescent light. But he did have one little habit. Every night, after cleaning the captain's office, he'd sit in the break room, drink a warm cup of vending machine coffee, half creamer, 2 sugars, don't judge him, and read through the unsolved cases folder accidentally left in the printer tray. Accidentally. Every night. Same tray. Same folder. You do the math. The case that changed everything? The Goldfinch Strangler. A killer who left behind no fingerprints, no DNA, and the weirdest calling card anyone had ever seen. A single yellow feather placed on the victim's wrist. 3 victims. No leads. Pure frustration. Detectives were running in circles. The media was all over it. Killer has police scrambling. Feathered fandom strikes again. Is it a bird? Is it a monster? Yeah. Real Pulitzer stuff. Stanley kept reading. Something didn't sit right. The reports were clean. Too clean. Crime scene staged almost too well. It was like the killer wanted to be admired. Applauded. Like he was showing off. Stanley had seen this kind of ego before. Not in criminals, but in chess players. He used to coach chess in a past life. State champions. Real prodigies. And one thing he learned? The smartest people often make the dumbest mistakes when they want to be noticed. So Stanley did what Stanley did best. He started cleaning around the precinct a little slower. Hung around just long enough to overhear conversations. Officers complained about dead ends, fingerprints that vanished, and one poor rookie swore the killer was a ghost. Ghosts don't leave feathers, Stanley muttered once, chuckling to himself while wiping down a whiteboard. Sorry, what? Asked Officer Riley, blinking. Oh, nothing, Stanley said, with that quiet smile he wore like a disguise. Just talking to the mop. But inside, the wheels were turning. Victim 1, jazz musician. Victim 2, librarian. Victim 3, art teacher. All in different neighborhoods. No obvious connection. Except Stanley remembered something odd. A flyer he saw at a laundromat, of all places. The Westbrook Underground Art Salon. A monthly event. Exclusive. Weird. The kind of place a killer who wanted applause might show off. Stanley cleaned his way into the tech room and left a sticky note on a junior analyst's desk. Check if victims ever RSVP'd to the art salon. S. He didn't expect much. But the next night, he saw the note in the trash. With the words, all 3 attended last month. Same night. Boom. That was the thread. Stanley didn't want credit. He wanted closure. But the thing is, when you solve puzzles, people notice eventually. Especially when, that same week, the 4th murder was prevented, because Stanley left a scribbled map of the art salon's parking layout, with a yellow feather taped beside a certain spot marked, watch this car. Sure enough, that's where the cops nabbed Gerald Monroe. History teacher. Flawless record. Chess champion. Obsession with birds. And one hell of a god complex. When the dust settled, the captain stormed into the break room. Saw Stanley sipping his vending machine brew. Calm. Like always. You, the captain said. Come with me. Stanley blinked. Did I forget to mop under your desk? What followed was unprecedented. They sat Stanley down. Gave him real coffee. Not the vending machine sludge. And for once, they listened. And Stanley? He talked. Walked them through every connection. Every leap of logic. How he saw it all not as a crime, but a pattern. A symphony of ego. How the killer needed admiration and left behind the feather like a magician's final flourish. One detective took notes. Another just stared, mouth open. I thought you were just the janitor, one finally muttered. I am, Stanley replied. But I'm also really, really bored. Within a month, Stanley wasn't just the janitor anymore. He still mopped floors. But now he also had a desk. A badge. Sort of. Technically, he was a civilian consultant with special clearance. But to everyone at Westbrook PD, he was their secret weapon. Cases kept coming, and Stanley kept solving. There was the missing manicure mystery, where a woman faked her own disappearance to get out of a pyramid scheme conference in Wisconsin. There was the case of the crying chihuahua, which wasn't a crime, just a very dramatic dog. But Stanley solved that too. Peanut allergies. Who knew? But the biggest shift? People started seeing him. Officers who once ignored him now brought him coffee. Real coffee. Fresh donuts. Detective Riley even invited him to poker night, where Stanley cleaned everyone out. Not with cheating, of course. Just calculating probabilities. And maybe reading facial tics. Just a little. One day, a rookie asked him, "Stanley, why were you working as a janitor with that kind of brain?" Stanley shrugged. Sometimes, the best way to see the world is when no one's watching you. That's the thing about being invisible. You get to see everything. Now, let me tell you what happened when the FBI came calling. Yeah, the feds. There was a cyber-stalked case. Big one. Hacker named Echo had been blackmailing government employees, crashing systems, wiping evidence. The Bureau couldn't track him. Too many VPNs. Too many dead ends. Then one day, Stanley asked the intern for help opening an email attachment. Said the file extension looked funky. It wasn't funky. It was encrypted. And Stanley cracked it. Over lunch. Between bites of egg salad. Turns out, Echo wasn't some international hacker ring. It was a lonely college student running scripts he bought on Reddit, living in his parents' basement. The FBI didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but they did offer Stanley a job. He turned it down. Said he didn't like the suits. Eventually, someone pitched a documentary. Netflix or Hulu, depending on who got the rights. They wanted to call it The Genius Janitor. Stanley just laughed. "You know," he said, "if I'd known mopping floors would lead to this much drama, I would have picked up a feather duster instead." And so, at Westbrook PD, Stanley still works. Still mops. Still sips his vending machine coffee, even though he has access to the fancy espresso machine now. Because the truth is, for Stanley Brooks, the job was never about glory, or credit, or fame. It was about order, about fixing things. And maybe, just maybe, proving that sometimes, the smartest person in the room is the one holding the mop.